The topic of feelings, it raises things for all of us, and we're going to go there today. I'm going to start off with this. A pastor once said in a sermon that I heard that the weather would be a much more accurately described feelings. And I thought it's true. Like quite often we say we're fine, and that is not true, unless you define it as that freaked out, insecure, neurotic thing. But what if you were to say to someone, how are you feeling today? Wow, grey clouds and lightning strikes coming, I think this could be a real useful way of describing our feelings, if you want people to run away from you. But no, it can give us a bit of language around it, like sometimes we don't know how to express ourselves. Although we have to be careful not to go too far too soon, like that guy in the furniture store, right? So I thought we'd start off by looking at, why do we have feelings? And part of the answer to that is that we're created in God's image. And God has feelings. If you have a little look through the Bible, you'll find all sorts of feelings that God has. So John 3:16 tells us that for God so loved the world, and there's a whole lot of verses. Jeremiah tells us, I've loved you with an everlasting love. God expresses joy. The joy of the Lord is your strength. The Lord will rejoice over you, as a bridegroom rejoices over the bride. God delights. He delights in those who fear him, who put their hope in his unfailing love. And he grieves. God knows this emotion too. Is that a surprise to you? The Lord was sorry that he had made man on the earth, and he was grieved in his heart. Jesus, he wept. When his friend died, Jesus wept. Actually, and there's another one there too. In Isaiah, it says, he was a man of sorrows, acquainted with grief. God hates. The arrogant cannot stand in your presence. You hate all who do wrong. In Psalm 11:5 it says, the Lord examines the righteous, but the wicked, those who love violence, he hates with a passion. God even gets angry. The Lord is gracious and compassionate, slow to anger and rich in love. It's funny how we sometimes take the slow to anger, but he is slow to anger. That part is true, but that means that he does get angry. In Psalm 106 verse 40 it says, the Lord was angry with his people. It's interesting how sometimes we don't notice these parts of the Bible. We don't think they apply to us, and so we can end up thinking that feelings are wrong. And we're going to have a look at that today. And the thing to remember about God's emotions is that God is holy, and the emotions he expresses are not tainted by sin, whereas sometimes the emotions that we express or the emotions of those around us, they are tainted by sin. Feelings bring a richness to life. Who would want to give up on the feeling of being in love? The feeling you hear when you hear the feeling you feel when you hear a child laugh, or when you watch a sunset, when you hug someone you love, when you achieve something difficult. Someone once said, the feeling you get when you watch a child when they're peacefully asleep? That's how God feels about us. Isn't that a cool thought? And I don't think most of us have a problem with these emotions. We're like, yes, sweet as, we'll take those ones. But what about the bad ones? We don't really want to have those ones. We could do without those ones. But we live in a broken world. Bad things happen, suffering is real, people make bad choices, sometimes evil choices. It affects them and it affects others. And I was really pleased that Shanton did a message last week on suffering, so if you want more on that topic, you can listen to his message online, because I can't cover that whole topic today, but suffice it to say that it is real. If we feel love, we will feel grief and loss when we lose what we love. If we hope, we will feel disappointment sometimes when our hope doesn't play out. If we trust people, sometime will break our trust. Doesn't sound like very good news, does it? Does that mean we shouldn't love and we shouldn't hope and we shouldn't trust? No, but it can be pretty tempting, can't it? To try and protect ourselves. So the question is, what do we do with that? What do we do when we feel broken and hurt and betrayed? And we need to recognise that feelings buried alive never die. I think that's a good quote. I think sometimes people try to bury their feelings because sometimes they're just afraid the feeling is unspiritual. You know, oh, well, God doesn't want us to have feelings. We've already kind of blown that one out the water. Sometimes they're afraid that if they let it out, it will cause conflict and make the relationship worse. And the problem is that that can be true. Sometimes letting our feelings out does cause conflict, especially if we do it in the wrong way. And, you know, conflict resolution needs a sermon on its own. Sometimes we don't let our feelings out because we don't want to be like someone else. Someone else over there let our feelings out in a way that wasn't helpful, and we're like, I'm not going to be like them. So keep it inside. And I think it's important to say that just when we try and bury our feelings, we're burying them. They are still alive. We're still feeling them. The people that are doing this, they might be trying not to show them on the outside, but they haven't gone away. They might try not to think about them. You know, sometimes they believe that if they don't think about it, it will be gone. But this little diagram is a good one because you plant a seed and it's just going to keep growing under the ground. And eventually it's going to start popping up all over the place. It's going to be so much bigger than it started off. And I want to say it's not a matter of thoughts versus feelings, you know. Sometimes we feel like it's one or the other. I'm a thinker, you're a feeler, and I'm better, and, you know, but it's not about that. We all have feelings. Some of us try to hide or bury them, like I've talked about. Some of us express them better than others, and some of us have better self-control of them than others, but we do all have them. And it's a bit more complicated than just thoughts versus feelings. So we're going to have a look at a little diagram, okay? So as children, we learn that our actions have an effect. Start with babies. Babies figure out quite quickly that if they smile, they get a smile back. You've seen that. I'm sure you've all seen that. So my action causes a result. And even as we're growing up and we're starting to walk, we figure out that if I do it this way, I fall down. And if I do it this way, I'm going somewhere. Woohoo! And so our actions, they cause a result. And this is the way that learning works. And for the most part, it's really helpful, but sometimes we can end up learning the wrong thing. So let's say that I run up and I stroke a dog, and the result is that I get painfully bitten. So then I think, dogs are mean. I form a belief. Actions go to result. I stroke the dog bites me. It hurts. Okay, so that hurts is a feeling. That must be why the arrow was there. And then I think dogs are mean. And then behind that thought, I form a belief that all dogs, they're no good. I don't want to stroke them. And next time I see a dog, I'm going to feel scared. And I'm going to take action, and I'm going to run away. Okay, let's say that you grew up with dogs in your house. They're friendly. You think they're man's best friend. You had plenty of positive experiences with them. Let's say you and I go for a walk. We're walking down the street, and along goes a German Shepherd. It's the same dog. What am I going to do? I'm going to look for the nearest tree to climb, and you're going to be whistling here boy, here boy. Completely different reaction. And it's because of this cycle that's going on inside of us. So both of our reactions are based on what we believe about dogs. And the Bible says it this way: for the mouth speaks what the heart is full of. That's in Luke 6, verse 45. Our actions, what comes out of what's going on inside of us. And our beliefs don't always come from our own personal experiences. Sometimes they're handed down to us from our parents or from observation of others' experiences. So my mum had a fear of dogs. I'm not sure why. I can't remember if I've ever asked her why, but it was probably one of these circles going on. And she handed that fear down to my sister, okay? Now, my dad, he used to say there's no need to be afraid of dogs, and that dogs could smell your fear. So that was the belief that I went. And my belief was that if you played it tough and showed that you were in charge, you would be okay. And so I remember one day our house used to be here and there was a preschool there and the car park was there. I was out in the car park and there were some kids playing and we had a ball and then there were some other people, they came in, they had a dog. And I looked at the dog and I thought, it looks a bit like a lab. I think those kind of dogs, they're usually okay, I'll be okay. So we're kicking the ball and I go kick and then something was on my foot and I shake my foot and I look down at my foot because it's not good and there's a dog attached to my foot. So that wasn't really very fun. And then another time we were going to the swimming pool, Kinnins Creek swimming pool, my mum, my sister and I, and there were these two big dogs there. Okay, I was only small, so they looked very, very big. My mum and my sister were panicking. I'm like, it's okay. It's okay, you just have to show you're in charge. And so I stroll up to the swimming pool, I'm going to go and suddenly the dog comes at me. So I ran away, the dog gets my jandal. My jandal has bite marks. I think I've saved my jandal, I can't remember, but we took off and we ran away. And you know what's funny though? My mum's fear and the things that happened to me, they reinforced my sister's fear. I'm still okay with dogs. I was the one who got bitten. I was the one who got chased. But my sister, she is terrified of dogs, most dogs, okay? She went to Queen Margaret College, and I think that's kind of a funny story that they'll go to the bus stop. She'd make mum come with her because she'd be too afraid to walk alone in case she saw a dog. And then she'd be like, Mum, should we stand on the chair? Because, that would make us so much safer if a dog came along. And it's just a really good example of how sometimes we do things that aren't even logical when an emotion kicks in. So the picture here is key, and if you can understand this, you can begin to break the cycle in places where it's not really working for you. And this cycle is going on constantly, and it's at a subconscious level. We don't think about this, we just act out of it, and we just do it. Mostly we're unaware that it's even happening. And that's just inside of me. And then you introduce other people into this equation. Oh my gosh, so complicated. Because you collide with lots of people in your day, unless you're a hermit and you live inside. So let's say I'm in a foul mood today and I'm feeling that way. I'm feeling in a foul mood and it'll come out in my actions. And it's not just me, okay? That happens too. That's you too. I've heard so many people that tell me, I was being so nice to this person, and then they did this. It's how are you feeling? Because if you're telling me how nice you were being, but you were actually feeling not very good, I guarantee that they didn't randomly do that out of the blue to you. You were leaking it, right? It comes out. It comes out in our body language, our lack of eye contact, our eye rolling, our expression, even our tone of voice, our lack of interest. Those feelings come out. It leaks to those closest to you. So back to me. So let's say I was in a bad mood and you got that vibe off me because it was leaking. So your action was to avoid me. Steer clear of that one for today. So then what happens next? I notice that you avoid me, and so then I start to think, that person doesn't like being around me. I don't think they like me. I start to think these things. And next time I see you, I'm going to go back there in my brain. I'm going to start feeling that hurt feeling that I felt last time. And you can see that we've started in a cycle, all because I was in a bad mood. And now we're in this cycle where I see you and it goes on. And so because I'm likely to act out of the hurt that I'm feeling, then it becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy. I thought it, and now that's the way it actually is. And the Bible says it this way in Proverbs 23:7, for as he thinks within himself, so is he. And I don't think it'll come as a surprise to you that how you're feeling impacts your thought life as well. So there's a little arrow, I don't know if you saw that one come up, but from feelings back up to thoughts. And this is about where you choose to dwell in your thoughts. And you can get a little bit stuck in a cycle there. I feel bad, I'm thinking not very good thoughts, I'm keeping my thoughts in that place, so that puts my feelings back down to a worse place, and it can just go around. So, there's one more arrow I'm going to put on this one, and that sometimes we just act out of our thoughts, right? Feelings aren't always involved. I go to the shop, I buy a loaf of bread, it's usually not an emotional experience. And that arrow there can be a saving grace. We'll come back to this diagram later on, okay? And this is still like keeping it quite simple, right? Then there's all the external stuff. This is some internal stuff, but there's how much sleep you've had, what time you choose to go to bed, how many times the baby woke you up during the night, your diet, a balanced diet with fruit and veggies and seeds. It's true, that kind of stuff. It's actually good for you, and it does make you feel better. Hormones, and if you're thinking that's just for the ladies, it's not. Like, we all have hormones. Hormones are just chemicals in our body that regulate something, and we all have them. And when you're stressed, your body produces cortisol. So there's this stuff going on inside us. We've talked about, then there's others as well, and then there's this other complicated one. It's one little word up there at the bottom of the list, that word trauma. But that one word on that slide comes with a real heavy weight, because significant trauma causes strong feelings, and it forges deep-seated beliefs. So, for example, people that have been abused can have a strong belief that that's what they deserve in life, that that's what they're worth, they're unworthy. People that have been through rejection or betrayal can operate out of an unspoken fear that they'll be rejected again, a belief that people can't be trusted. And traumas also include loss, natural disasters, health crises. The same trauma can cause different reactions and different feelings in different people. And getting through trauma often requires wise counsel from wise friends or counsellors and or ministry. And I don't have the time today to go into dealing with trauma, but if this is triggering something for you, then we are going to deal with some stuff that's going to help you, but I encourage you to seek help if you need it about trauma that you've been through. And the thing about trauma is it causes this thing that they call emotional bruising. And so if we get bumped, we get triggered. And you can tell that you've been triggered when a little thing causes a big feeling in you. And what's usually happened is there's been either a big trauma or lots of little traumas that have caused like an appropriate feeling and response, and now there's a bruise. And now, even if it just gets touched lightly, we go to that feeling place. And it causes, it can feel overwhelming, and it often causes what's called a fight or flight response. So with fight, it comes up inside you and you just want to attack. And with flight, you just want to get away. And so you can tell if it is this one of those big feelings? Like if what set it off was actually something quite little that someone else wouldn't have reacted to, and then this big feeling rising up, that's usually one of these. And so you can see, if you had a real bruise in life and someone comes along, say I've got a big whopping bruise on my shoulder, someone comes along and they give me a hug. They didn't know I had the bruise. And I'm going to go, ow! And you can see that people can touch our bruises without even realizing it. And it's not about them, it's about us, and it's about the fact that we're carrying a bruise, and what are we going to do about that? And in a relationship, this can be, before I go into that, what does my writing say? Sometimes it's hard to read. Oh, that's right. Okay, so I've got a little story on this one. So when I was in sixth form, I went caving. And there was a group of us with a couple of instructors, and we had helmets and all the gear, and it was underground caves with water and stuff. And somehow I got stuck. I'm not even a very big person. And I got stuck in between these jagged rocks. And I couldn't get out. It was actually my helmet that was stuck. And so what they did is they took my helmet off. And I have no recollection of this. They had to take my helmet off so I could fit out. I have no recollection, but apparently what I did as soon as they took the helmet off was to thrash my head wildly, which is a really dumb idea when you're stuck between sharp rocks. And the instructor, apparently, she told me afterwards, she had to throw her hands in the air so I didn't cut up my whole head, right? And I didn't really think a whole lot about this until one day we were doing a dance. And we had this big tube of cloth, and I was like, this is cool, we can use this somehow. Let's all get inside the tube of cloth and then climb out. It was a big tube. So I climb in the middle, and the others climb on the outside, and this feeling of panic rises within me because I feel trapped. And I'm like, everybody out, we're getting out, every fast we can, out. Everybody gets out, Adele gets out. And what was happening, that it was triggering that it was bringing back that overwhelming feeling, and I didn't want to feel it. Now, I got around it by being like, okay, everybody else get in, and I'll get on the end, because then I'm not trapped, and I can get out. But it's only recently that, like, I've put the pieces of this jigsaw puzzle together of what's been going on, and how and so now I try and avoid the unbearable feeling of being trapped. And that's what we do. When we have one of these unbearable feelings, we try and avoid them. And in relationship, this can cause like a world of trouble, because we can end up pushing each other's bruises. So let's say I've got someone over here and they don't like conflict. They were raised in a house with conflict where there were big explosions and it got emotional and hurtful. And so conflict to them brings an unbearable feeling. So they try and avoid conflict. And how do they try and avoid conflict? Well, this particular person tries to avoid it by lying. So they'll just tell something that's not even true to make the conflict go away. Nope, that didn't happen. Nope, I didn't think that. Nope. Okay, then we've got a person over here, and their unbearable feeling is being deceived. And so when they feel like they might be being deceived, their response is to interrogate. And so you can see that when these two people are trying to be in relationship together, that one over here, is getting conflict, I'm going to start lying. I feel like I'm being deceived, I'm going to start interrogating, and it just gets into a vicious cycle and spins out. So how do we break that cycle? We've got to deal with our emotional bruises, and how do we do that? So we're going to look at some truths about feelings. We'll come back here, but we're going to look at some truths first. So the first truth about feelings is that we own our feelings. Other people can have an impact on how we feel, but at the end of the day, our feelings are ours and ours alone. If we don't like what we're feeling, the only one who is responsible to change our feeling is ourselves. And and you know this is true. If I'm feeling miserable, you can do everything else in your power to try and change how I'm feeling, but unless I'm on board with that, you're not going to change it. It's just like in the drummer. If she just wants to stay in that place, then there's nothing in her sister's power that she can do to change that, unless the one on the couch makes a decision that she wants to accept that help. Others can help you change your feelings, and God can help you change your feelings, but you do have to be a willing participant. You know, I've got a quote from Henry Cloud and John Townsend that says this: "Feelings are from the heart and can tell you the state of your relationships. Your feelings are your responsibility, and you must own them and see them as your problem, so you can begin to find an answer to whatever issue they are pointing to." So feelings are part of like our knapsack that we have to carry. And it creates problems for us if we think it's other people's responsibility to carry our feelings. And it also creates problems for us if we think it's our responsibility to carry other people's feelings. We're like running around like, give me that, I'll look after it, you know. So we're responsible to each other, and that we need to be kind and loving to each other, but we're not responsible for each other. So the Bible says in Galatians 6.5, 6 verse 5, each one should carry their own load. So what's a load? A load is our knapsack, our normal responsibilities, fulfilling duties to friends, family, schoolwork, church. So mature people are responsible for their own life, their own desires, their own problems. Whereas if you're not mature in this area, you experience life as a victim, basically, and you're always looking for someone else to carry it for you, because it's like everybody else's fault except your own that these things aren't being carried. But there are times in life when we hit boulders, like financial, medical, emotional crises. And at that time, the Bible tells us to carry each other's burdens. But the thing about boulders is that there are still very few boulders in life in which we have no responsibility. Like, we have to be one of those people helping carry the rock. I'm sorry about the shirtless men. That was the best picture I could find, where there were people all helping carry the boulder. All right, and so the second truth about feelings is this one, is that we're responsible for our own actions regardless of our feelings. So it's not an excuse of how we're feeling to just act out, to mouth off, to sin. It's not a license to say, well, I was feeling this way, so that's what I'm going to do. So we need to recognize that negative feelings, like even though I've put the like bad feelings, we don't usually like them, they're not really pleasant, but they can result in a positive outcome. So think about it this way. You know, if you eat lollies, it feels good, Oops, I've animated it wrong. But it causes harm. And it's the same, like these things in life that might feel good. Doing drugs and some sin stuff, like it might feel good at the time, but it's actually causing harm, and it's not going to feel good later. But then going to the dentist, it doesn't really feel very good, but it is good for us. And so sometimes even those feelings that are unpleasant, they can produce a harvest of righteousness. They can turn out for our good. God can use them for our growth, to bring reconciliation, to draw us closer to Him. So what to do about the bad feelings? So step number 1, we're up to the steps. Woohoo! Step number 1. Stop and tame the feeling by naming the feeling. Like, give yourself a timeout. That's what stop is about, if you need. Like, you might actually need to walk away from the situation. Stop long enough. Go, I am feeling blah. Because if we stop and do that, we suddenly start to become aware of what's going on. We can start thinking about our cycle. Whereas if we just act out of the feeling, then it's just going to blur out. So we need to pause for a second and go, this is what I'm feeling. Give it a name. And step number 2 is to invite God into and I've got those still bad. They're not necessarily bad, remember that, but they're unpleasant ones. Invite God into that. It says in the Bible, a bruised reed He will not break, and a smouldering wick He will not snuff out. What does that mean? It means God holds our feelings tenderly. He's not going to break them, and He gets it, and He's okay. He's okay that we come to Him with these feelings that we don't like. He's big enough to handle them. Like, even if we're actually angry at Him, He's big enough to handle that, He's seen it before, trust me. He knows it. Jesus knows betrayal. Jesus knows rejection. He knows grief. We can bring it to Him and invite Him into that space so that He can help us on the next part of the process. Don't judge yourself. This is really important, because feelings themselves are not a sin. Feelings themselves are not a sin. Feeling jealous even and feeling lustful in themselves are not a sin, but acting on them or inviting them in to sit down and have a seat, and I'll indulge you, here go, sit down and have some cream donuts, lust. We're gonna stay here. That is a sin, okay? But if you want those feelings, though, to knock at your door less, you've got to figure out why they came to visit. So you can't just ignore them and blinkers on and la 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 la. I'm going to pretend it never happened. Why did that feeling come to visit? That's how we deal with the problem. So, and then the next step is to be curious. Wow, isn't that so profoundly simple? Be curious. Turn over the rock. Where is this coming from? What's going on underneath this big feeling? And I'm going to pause for a moment to talk about this guy. If you don't know who this guy is, this is Angry Bird. I think you can tell that from his face. So anger can be an indicator that an injustice has occurred, God gave us anger so that we can right wrongs in this world. But it's also often a first reaction when we are hurt or we fear. It's the easiest one for us to reach for. It's more comfortable to let anger in, because it usually keeps the focus outwards on something else rather than what we're feeling on the inside. So often hiding behind this guy is one of these guys. And if the thing is, when we face these guys, we have to face in. So that is why we often just go anger to everybody else. So if we're feeling anger, then we be curious and we can turn over the stone and go, okay, anger, what is sitting behind you? Is this an injustice that I need to right? Or am I protecting myself here? Because it's much easier to feel anger and actually there's some hurt or some fear, something else going on behind. So back to being curious. You can try the little so what exercise, being curious, digging a little deeper. We've turned over the stone, going to get a little spade, and we're going to dig around in the sand just a little bit. Ask, so what does that mean? What does that say about my feelings? If this is how I'm feeling, what's underneath it? What sits behind it? Is there another feeling hiding behind this feeling? What does that say about my thoughts? What does that say about my underlying beliefs? And we talked before about inviting God in to this process. God, what would you say to me in this? What would you want me to know in this? Is there something that you're wanting me to learn in this? Now, that's different than saying, God, you sent this as a lesson. But we can still learn from other people's bad choices. God, what is there in this that you might have for me? How could I grow out of this? You know, Proverbs tells us the wisdom of the prudent is to give thought to their ways. And that's really about what this is about, giving thought to our ways. So, you know, if my fear is of being trapped, and then did I tell you I've also been trapped in lifts twice as well? Bonus of working at a hospital. If my fear is of being trapped, then what's the truth in that? You know, I haven't gotten to the end of that journey. In fact, there was like a space in my sermon in this little spot about right here, and I learned some tools yesterday that I intend to put to work. And what they said is, find out what the truth is. Like, what is the truth? Am I actually trapped? How long is it actually going to take? Like, what's the worst thing that could happen to me? And how realistic is that? You know, even in yesterday as well, I was going in to lunch, and there was a wall down one side, and there was a line of people down this side, and on the wall there was like drapey stuff hanging down. We started to walk in to go to the end of the line, and I'm like, I can't do this. I feel trapped. It was a long line. It's like, turn around, walking back out again. And it all, you know, it all crystallized this morning. That's what I was doing. I was avoiding that unbearable feeling of being trapped. I walked around. There was another door. I walked all the way around the building and came in the other door where there wasn't a queue, so I didn't have to feel trapped between the people and the wall. And that's what we do. We try and avoid our unbearable feelings. But these are the tips, which I have yet to try out, that I'll keep you posted. And I'm going to give them to you anyway, because we need some hope here. So saying, what's the truth? What is the truth? How real is it? And then getting used to the emotion. So what I should have done, instead of turning around, is to keep walking. And to say to myself, you know, what is the truth? What you're trying to do is to downgrade that unbearable feeling just to an unpleasant one. Like, I don't like it, but I'd rather not do it, but I can and I will. I can and I will face the fear and do it anyway. There is some truth in that. And I should have just kept walking and been like, I'm okay. Nothing bad is happening. I'm getting to the end of the line. I'll try that next time, okay? And that's what we can all do. And then the thing about this process is that we need to align with God's truth. It's not like just the advantage of being a follower of God, being a Christian, is that we don't just have to figure out our beliefs that might be faulty and then come up with a new belief that might be faulty too, and just keep replacing belief with faulty belief. Like, God gave us a book. It's called the Bible. It's His Word, and in this Word are truths, and so we can stand on our truths. Jesus said, if you hold to my teaching, you are really my disciples. Then you will know the truth, and the truth will set you free. Yeah, so we have a source of truth. It's a source of truth that brings freedom. And that's why it's quite a good idea to read your Bible. Don't know if you know that. And to memorize scriptures, or if you can't really remember them, to write them on things and stick them around your house, or journal them in a little book so you can refer back to them. Because that's why the Bible is called your sword, because it enables you to fight back. Okay? When feelings threaten to overwhelm us, that's your sword, that's your go-to. So, how does this look like in real life? I'm going to share with you some of my favorite go-to Bible verses. We take captive every thought to make it obedient to Christ. This is a real good one when you feel something's happened and you're not feeling good about it and your mind just keeps going there. And I should have said this instead. And you can feel it inside you. I'm going to take captive every thought. My thoughts are not going to stay here, and my feelings are not going to keep going out of my thoughts. I'm going to not think about this. That's not helping me right now. Take captive every thought. I'm taking my thoughts somewhere else. Here's another one. You knit me together in my mother's womb. I praise you because I am fearfully and wonderfully made. That's about I have worth. I am not here by mistake. God made me and I have value. Do you know the Bible also says to write these things on your heart, but I've got even better. I've got that one on my jacket. What about, here's another good one. For I know the plans I have for you, declares the Lord. Plans to prosper you and not to harm you. Plans to give you a hope and a future. That's about I have purpose. I have hope. God has plans for me. Plans for me. Plans and a destiny. That He hasn't given to someone else. They're like specifically for me. I can do all things through Him who gives me strength. That's I can and I will. And I'm going to keep on walking down my tunnel of trappedness. You know, I can and I will. I can do all things through God who gives me strength. Peace I leave with you. My peace I give you. Do not let your hearts be troubled and do not be afraid. You know, that says I can have peace. God gave me peace and He doesn't give as the world gives. In the middle of a storm even, I can have peace. Here's another good one. God is faithful, who will not let you be tempted beyond what you can bear. This is not too much for me. That is what that's. This feels too hard. This is not too much for me. I'm too tempted by this sin. This is not too much for me. He will not let me be tempted beyond what I can bear. And here's another one that I still don't really like very much, but it's a good one, okay? And we know that in all things God works for the good of those who love Him. Don't you just sometimes want to tell God, no, there's no good coming out of this. Maybe I'm going to make some no good come out of it so that you can, not do it, not let it happen. But it's futile exercise, you know. Sometimes it's hard to believe this one. But the Bible says it, and so it must be true. God says it. That settles it, whether I believe it or not. You know, God said it, that settles it. It helps if I believe it. It helps me more than anybody else. Somehow, God can bring something good out of this. No matter how big it is, no matter how hard it is, no matter how painful it is, no matter how hopeless it feels, if I choose to work with Him in this uncomfortable feeling, God can bring something out of this. You know, I say this one more like a prayer, to be honest. I'm not that good at the reminding side. It's like, God, can you bring something good about this? Please, to make the pain worthwhile. The answer is He can. You know, and if that's all you can do, then that's good enough. Can you bring something good out of this, Lord? You know, the song said today, you say I am loved when I can't feel a thing. You say I am strong when I think I am weak. You say I am held when I am falling short, when I don't belong. You say I am yours. And the truth is, will you believe? The question is, will you believe what God says about you? Because He says it. And He's got truths, and He's got truths for you to stand on, and they are truths that can get you through any and every situation. They are truths that can make us stronger, that can bring us into a place of wholeness, that can break the cycle. They are truths that set us free. You know, this was a poem. I really tossed up with what was going to be on my last slide. This was a poem that we had on our wall at home when I was a kid, and I've discovered that it actually comes from an old hymn. God has not promised skies always blue, flower-strewn pathways all our lives through. God has not promised sun without rain, joy without sorrow, peace without pain. But God has promised strength for the day, rest for the labourer, light for the way, grace for the trials, help from above, unfailing sympathy, undying love. You know, I had a picture as we were praying out there this morning, and it was a picture of just like stormy seas, big waves crashing around. And I believe there's some people that are feeling like this today about this topic, about stuff that's going on in their life. Big waves crashing around, and then I just saw peace. The waves, calm seas, just like a sparkle on the seas. And God can do that for us. God wants to do that for us if we'll let him in. So I'm going to invite Dad up, and he's going to close us in prayer.